Hey, what's up, all you animation fans, manga fans, 2D fans in general? I'm Duuz-Diz-Din, and I'm here with a brand new series, What's the Difference? As I look through the various different versions of a series and just kind of scope out different changes, why I feel that certain changes were made, and if I feel like any changes were warranted or were necessary in the end. Today, I'm looking at the first episode of Shaman King, both the 2021 version, the 2001 version, and the manga version. As we start up with events, we open up with something that doesn't happen in any of the other versions. Whereas the manga just kind of opens up with, at most an explanation of souls and shamans, and then a nice splash page. Very cool, very colorful. You get to be introduced to certain characters ahead of time. With the original anime, they just open up with the theme and then you go right into what the chapter is about. It keeps very in line with the manga for at least there. But with the newer anime, they start things out with the birth of our main villain and our main hero. Now, ultimately, I feel like this was done because that ends up very much being the crux of the series. It's all about these two characters. While it's kind of more developed later down the line once you're introduced to how properly, at least here you're seeing he is an important factor in this series. Manga, that it only starts to feel that way later down the line. Original anime, same. How is more of a, okay, we'll deal with him when we get to it. No, here in the newer anime, it's all about how. How is deathly important. He's deathly interesting. He's fascinating. You need to know who How is and the danger that he poses to the world. So I think it's a very interesting and fascinating choice overall, and I'm kind of glad they decided to do it this way. Now the newer anime kind of shows off this image we see in the manga as well, with the explanation of souls and shamans and all that good stuff. It's a beautiful illustration too, very cool, and we get this nice shot, very much like the splash page in the manga, showing off characters that we will come to know and be involved with in the future. So I like that. And now the anime jumps into its theme, and we also jump into the theme of the original anime. And, see the various differences going on here. Both kind of open up in a similar fashion because on the hill, but the way that the hill is presented is very different because, in one version, is a little bit more solitary. It kind of looks like, oh, he's just normally by himself. Here, he's a little bit more surrounded with allies and friends. I kind of like that a bit more. Also, Spirit Bird, always important. You gotta have the Spirit Bird in an opening and an ending. It's absolutely necessary. I love this kind of stuff. I don't know which I love more, the somber loneliness that they kind of show in the original opening, or the more camaraderie going on in the newer anime. Really hard to tell. I love the passion, the fire they have going on with all this. You can see a little bit of the action. I love the way that they both have a different way of showing how silver is kind of introduced. Boom, silver. Boom, silver. Like, it's such a stark difference. There are similarities, but there are differences as well. See, with one series, they're not afraid to kind of show off that, you know, all of these will be allies to Yo at some point. Whereas this, it kind of shows that, yes, they will be allies, but they will also be enemies in a certain capacity as well. Everybody and their abilities, it never stops being cool and fun and awesome. I just love all these abilities that everyone shows off. There's just something really intense about it, honestly. Showing off all the characters, boom boom. There's a little bit more personality in the newer opening, honestly. I have to say the old opening is bad because honestly, I kind of prefer the opening for the older version. But the newer version, they really do inject a little bit more character. But that kind of comes from the fact that at this point, they already know where these characters start and where they end, so they can plot out how they want to do these characters there. With this series, they only got to a little bit before or around the halfway point, so not so much there. So, you know, the contrastion, it's just very different. It's very apparent. You know, Ryu in one looks a little bit more stoic, but in another they're willing to make it more goofy. You know, Faust, you know, stoic. You know, it's just like guy in a wheelchair. That's weird. You know, Yo, confident in both. You know, and one Ren is a little bit more stoic, and another he seems a little bit more cheerful. Same with Horo Horo. It's very interesting. I really do kind of dig the comparisons and how different things can really get as time goes on. You know, both opening up late at night, but with one, you spend a little bit more time with Manta's cram school and all that good stuff. Prolonged shots with Manta, creating this kind of ominous tone going on here. It's just like, oh, it just ended up at the hill, at the cemetery. Manta's not as stressed in the older version, but whereas in the manga and the newer anime, you see that stress. They kind of prolong that stress. They keep on that stress. Whereas on these two versions, it's kind of simple, carefree. Manta in these versions are a little bit more high-strung, a little too inside his own head. Whereas in this version, Manta, he does stop immediately and look at the stars. He's a little bit more accepting of Yo and how he operates for the most part. You know, Manta feels a little bit more like a space cadet. Also, Manta's dumpy body in the original series is kind of weird. I really do love the comparison you see here. You know, just a very cheerful kid looking out for everyone. You know, just a love of spirits and people, kind of go with the flow kind of kid. It radiates in all three versions. That this is just a all in all nice kid. You know, I just love this series because of that. Yo is such a good kid, such a good egg, made to be protected. Now we start to run into the differences too, because whereas the manga, you spend a little bit of time with Manta, then he screams and leaves. The first anime, you know, boom, he screams and leaves immediately. He doesn't even think about what he's seeing with the ghost. He immediately screams and leaves. with the newer anime, we're immediately starting to get involved with Amidamaru to a certain extent. That connection that he and Yo has, we're trying to develop that now a little bit earlier on. I also feel that in the original anime, his classmates weren't as mean to him as in the other versions. They rib on him a lot more in the original series, original anime, but in the other versions of the manga and the newer anime, they laugh at him a lot more. So it's very much hard to tell, which I prefer better. Because the situation with Manta in the original anime, it just keeps going. They keep building on his frustration and, his anger and all that good stuff. They kind of just, pass him off. They don't think much of him. But, see, that feels a little bit more like high school kids. See, in the original anime, they're a little bit more concerned about him as a person, at least. Like, are you okay? Is something wrong? But we have a little bit of that in the manga as well, when they're eating lunch. And in the manga, they get the warning about Wooden Sword Ryo and all of his punks hanging out in the cemetery. His friends, in each version, his friends are a little bit more tolerable to a certain degree, or not as tolerable. It all really depends. There's fluctuations in how his friends act towards him. I feel like the newer anime, doesn't prolong Manta's suffering as much as the other series do. And all three's different series kind of portray Yo in a different light, I feel. Original manga, he kind of looks a little bit like a dope. That's it. Like a dude who's just kind of chilling out, spacing out. In the older anime, he looks stoned. He really looks stoned off his ass. Whereas in the newer anime, he does kind of look like a bit of a goof off. Like he's just kind of spacing out. But that original anime, he looks stoned off his ass. I don't know if I guess it's just the way his eyes look. But the way he looks there. I guess it's because in that series, he's smiling. He's always smiling. He's always got that kind of doofy smile going on. Even when he's not thinking about anything, boom, there's that, innocent, boyish smile going on. Anime just lingering on different things. And with the older anime, he doesn't immediately confront Yo. Some reason he loses Yo all of a sudden. Yo just wanders off. But in the other series, it's just like they have a frank discussion. They talk a little bit. And we actually get to know, it's just like, oh, shamans. Boom! There you go. It makes Manta feel not as crazy, because he's at least owning up to it there. There's just this nicer feel. And in the newer series, he's asking about Amidamaru too. They're trying to build that connection between Yo and Amidamaru immediately, to make it feel like it wasn't just something that happened off screen. It was something that was developing immediately. It's pretty cool stuff, honestly. Oh god, this image. I don't know how I should feel about that image. But the attention to detail between the manga and the newer anime. They have the foresight of knowing it's just like, okay, we should add this in, we shouldn't add this in, boom, boom, boom. And whereas the manga, it's just like you actually get to see how the thought of Yo is starting to, invade his mind, obsess over it, and how it's starting to affect him on a personal level. Each version spends differing amounts of time on how Manta starts to kind of obsess over Yo as a person. But, I mean, who wouldn't when you see ghosts and nobody else will believe you? The newer anime also has this moment where, Amidamaru and Mosuke, was it? Yeah, Mosuke. This moment where he's trying to make amends, and the connection between the two. It's very fascinating stuff. I'm not sure. It's just like, do I like more of the mystique of not fully having Amidamaru around and the involvement of his character, or do I enjoy the fact that we're starting to build upon Yo's relationship and his willingness to help out Amidamaru immediately? It's hard to say. Definitely tell me which you prefer. But I also love this moment of contemplation because, whereas in the original anime, Manta's already obsessed, he already looked at the stars and all that. But here, he takes a moment to just look at the stars, to just think about the stars. He gazes at the stars after thinking about Yo so much. It's a very interesting situation. I think I like it better where it happens later down the line because now he's had time to really think about what Yo had to say. Got a Polaroid camera. And Ryu's gang just kind of hanging out in the cemetery because they can make all the noise they want. And in each different version, Ryu is either smoking or not smoking. Well, in the manga, he's smoking. In all the anime, he's not. Because I think he's underaged, actually, to be doing something like that. And they don't want kids to imitate that kind of behavior. Which is funny because there's so much violence in this series. But that's the thing that delinquents will do. It's just like they'll smoke at an early age and all that, this and that. But it's just like, come on. God, the original series had all these establishing shots. I guess it's the save on animation to a certain degree. And Ball Boy, the more superstitious of all of Ryu's group. God, Ryu's friggin' pompadour. And now you get the legend of Amidamaru and all that good stuff. It's hard to say. It's hard to say how you should feel because with the other versions, they're trying to build up Amidamaru as this dark, legendary figure. But when it comes to the original manga and the original anime, they keep him in more mysterious. But in the newer anime, it's just like they already have given away that he seems more like a gentler soul than that. Is that a positive thing? Should they have kept the mystique? Hard to tell. And you see the goofiness of the original anime, whereas of the original manga being goofy. Whereas the original anime kept it a little bit more serious. The newer anime, there's a little bit of the goofiness, but not so much. It's almost like they weren't sure where they wanted Ryu's character to really go. Because the manga does make Ryu feel a little bit more serious later down the line, but at the same time they keep making him more goofy in a lot of ways too. So each one makes Ryu goofy in their own specific way, but that's because there's a certain amount of style in the different ways that, each art style kind of portrays certain characters. God, they make Ryu seem so much older than he actually is. Manta, you in that can. And again, the manga goes to extremes. The original anime kept it subdued. The newer animes try to find that happy medium between the extremely goofiness and a little bit more serious. Like, it's weird the way they chose to do this. Poor Manta. And then they beat the crap out of him. The original anime, they take that moment again to establish that connection between Yo and Amidamaru. It's so interesting. Like, they're trying to keep it under wraps, but at the same time, you have this opening that shows him teaming up with Amidamaru already, so... Which looks rougher? You know, the manga, the original anime, or the newer anime? Honestly, Manta looks the roughest in the original anime. And see, the manga, newer anime, they're laughing at the fact that he's in pain. Older anime, they're a little bit more concerned about his well-being, if nothing else. I kind of like the fact that they at least are showing him more concern in the original anime, rather than just writing off what happened to him. Now, it's not a great thing that they're making him feel even worse because they don't believe what he saw, but at the same time, it's just like they're seeing a self-destructive behavior, and it's just like, look, man, you need to stop before you get yourself seriously injured. You're in rough shape already. I wonder why they made that change. Maybe just not to encourage bullying? Hard to say. And then they're still going with that scene in the original anime. God. They spend some time in class, and they just really milk this. But again, because the manga was still just slowly chugging along, and the anime just kept oh god, that 3D scene. The anime kept risking catching up. They would just keep inserting stuff to pad out the runtime. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? It's really hard to tell. And then he's just kinda demanding man to go along with him. Which version of Ryu looks more menacing? Please tell me in the comments below. The resolute nature of Yo. Also, which version of its headphones do you find more cool? And there you have it. Like, again, the original manga and the newer anime, there's that determined look in his eyes. It's just like, yeah, I'll do it. Whereas in the original anime, it's just like, oh, it's alright. Like, oh my god, Shaggy, go eat a Scooby snack or something. And then boom, you have these varying levels of escalation. Original manga, Manta's just tied to Yo. Just very simple, it's not that bad. Original anime, he's tied to a tree. This looks like kidnapping. Newer anime, it's just got like he's just hanging onto Yo, almost like he's trying to stop him. So it has these ups and downs all over the place. They're kind of trying to keep up the mystique of Yo here in the original anime. God, his hair looks like a Swiss roll. Okay, so another difference. Amidamaru here looks intense. Amidamaru in the original anime, you can't make him out at all for some reason. I don't know why they were trying to keep up the mystique. Amidamaru in the newer version, again, very intense. It's hard to tell why they made these choices. God, Amidamaru is so intense. I don't know, it's hard to say. The dopey confidence of the original anime version, or the just plain confidence of the manga and 2021 version. Which do I prefer? God, and you can see the differences too. The newer anime chose not to emulate the original manga because a lot of changes happen to how Amidamaru looks in the Spirit Ball mode. But they went with how it looked in the original anime, more or less. So I kind of like that contrast. The newer anime is taken from both the manga and the older anime to just kind of go with what they felt looked the best. And I love changes like that. It's very fascinating. Nice. Yes. Both versions had that sick shot. Ah, it's so intense. Like, boom, baby. See, looks so cool, they couldn't not use it. Yeah. And unlike with the original manga and the original anime where, the two guys just ended up falling in the grass, the newer anime, they fall into the river nearby. Why did they make this change? Aesthetic? Anyone's guess. And in the original manga and a newer anime, actually talk about the Hyogato. It's just like, what does that mean? Whereas in the original anime, they don't even bother talking about it. Again, another change. Whereas original manga, original anime, facing one direction, newer anime, facing another direction. Like, it brings forth the question, why did they choose to make this change? There's this weird picking and choosing of how they want to adapt this kind of stuff. Makes you wonder which pose is a little bit more badass. You decide. I like seeing the similarities rather than just having it be like, okay, Yo has a different look. I love this shot. And thus Ryu has lost his hair for the first time. And then we replay it. And the manga doesn't dwell too much on Amidamaru or anything like that. He's just off to the side, moping. Okay, so in one version they fix up the grave, in another the grave, they just kind of stacked it back together. Whereas in the other, they just kind of celebrated the job well done. Yo and Manta are talking about what they did. So you're starting to get into the second chapter, Waiting Samurai. We'll talk about Shaman King in the original anime. And then it just kind of ends there in the original anime. Boom. Just the involvement of Amidamaru. He hasn't asked him to be his spirit or anything like that. Whereas in the newer anime, they had so much development of Yo going through and trying to bond with Amidamaru. I guess I should jump into the next episode of the first series so I can just get that connection with Amidamaru. Because they're trying to get to that point where waiting samurai. For some reason, the first series of the newer... Oh, and here we have the moment. It's just like they're now doing that whole stuff from the first in the second episode. Where Manta is finally actually looking into shamans. All the same imagery and stuff. And, it's Manta and Yo just chilling out the next day like they did in the manga, but under different circumstances. I guess they wanted to consolidate all the knowledge of shamans in one kind of confined space. Okay, and now we have that moment where he asks Amidamaru to become his partner. Mitamaru's a little bit more colder in the other versions. Manda's a little bit more forceful in the manga. You get to see a little bit of the dynamic between Yo and Manta here. You also get to see that some spirits are a little bit more aggressive. And now the older anime is kind of focusing a little bit more on Ryu and his exploits. Ryu's kind of the Kuwabara of this series. And by this point in the newer anime, we've already seen the katana. And at this point in the manga, we're just now seeing the katana. It's closed? Oh my god, they are just dragging this out. Weird, why not just have them go there on a day that it's open? Why add this little detail with the janitor? Like, were older anime a lot more atmospheric? Is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It's really hard to tell. They really are trying to build up the mystique of it in the original anime. Just random wise old guy. Ah, they're building this up. When it's just like, boom! There he is! I'm hungry. God, they really make him a bum. Ew, the sword peed. Oh, there it is. I do like the fact that they're having a nice frank chat at least. They're not just kind of glossing over Mosuke's whole plight and all that. Was it better to have Manta there with Yo and Mosuke, or was it better to just kind of shorten that? Also, why did the older anime give Mosuke a ponytail? Old anime, you're really drawing this out, guys. Like, dramatic shot, dramatic wind flapping in the breeze. The age of the sword. Oh, they just cut over the conversation they had afterwards. See, again, certain versions do a little bit more, a little bit less. It's weird. Yeah, the versions of, it's just like when they were younger in the older anime, it's just like, okay, they're young boys, strappy young lads, they look a little dirty, but it's not as bad. The manga and the anime, it's just like they look like they're emaciated and starving and growing up in death. It is a very stark contrast. Yeah, the old guy's still a creep. Mitamaru's such a good guy. See? Same beats! Same beats! But just choreographed differently. Such a sad story, too. Poses are so different. So, old anime is going off with this. Look for... Jeez, a mound of corpses. Yeah, I think as a spirit you'd be freaking out too if somebody just changed you into a spirit ball. Yeah, and then they just up and steal the katana. And then just boom. Yeah, okay, I guess if they just straight up just give it to him in the end. And then they have that moment where in the original anime it looks like he's just passing on. I kind of like the fact that Yo was honestly just fine with him passing on. I guess all versions have a good reason for the way that they do things. Fucking in the original series, in the original anime, Rio just shows up. Jeez, how weird to just have. And Amidamaro was just really just gonna pass on. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why in the original series I didn't think Rio was gonna become an ally, because it's just like he just seems like such a jerk. Oh jeez. Such melodrama. Again, it makes it so hard to believe they become partners later down the line. Not as cool. It's not as cool. Just feels like you rehash things. And then they just return the sword. At least they return the sword here. I'm pretty sure they keep the sword eventually. Even when it comes to the older anime, I think they go back and steal the sword. So it's kind of pointless to have put it back. I guess they didn't want to make Yo just look like a thief. I think that was it. Jeez, it's really hard to tell with this series. The manga just has this entire other storyline. Guy on the billboard, this, that, and the other. Cause, let's see, OG anime is just like, boom, Tauren, boom, there we go, next rival. Original anime doesn't get there right away, and then Ren's just in the same cemetery. But the manga is going through this whole different storyline. I don't know if this will be adapted. Yeah, the original manga just had a lot of side stories that didn't really go anywhere. Yeah, whereas in the manga, Ryu just has a rough time of it after this. The original anime made Ryu seem a little bit more like a bully, whereas the original manga, he's kind of pathetic. It kind of sucks. I really do have to wonder if they'll adapt any of this stuff. Okay, and after a few instances of Yo doing some random soul stuff, now Tauren shows up. So yeah, I think they're just cutting out 3 chapters, because both versions seem like they just want to get to Tauren. So it seems like they adapted 1 and 2, and then both versions of the anime skip over chapters 3, 4, and most of 5, except for the end where you run into Tauren. It's just like, look, Tauren is the main event. You want Tauren. Although the original anime just wanted to have this mysterious interaction with him. Yeah, that's it. Alright. A little jumbled towards the end there, but that kind of becomes from the fact that so much gets swapped around. I'm hoping that as it goes and they get closer to the shaman fight, which is the main selling part of this series, you end up getting to a little bit more of a cohesive integration of manga events. Because I know that the OG anime really swapped things up, but the newer anime is swapping things up as well, so it seems like it's unavoidable no matter what version of the story you get into. There's always going to be differences. There's always going to be something kind of out there. So, next episode of the new series will be Tauren. We'll check out the differences and similarities to the various different versions there. If you liked what I did here, please leave me a like. If there are any improvements I can do, please tell me. I know it was a little scattered all over the place, but again, like I said, things kind of get a little bit jumbled towards the end because they're desperately trying to introduce Tao Ren as the next event. I guess they just don't want to prolong things. They want to get to the new ally slash enemy, the Vegeta of the series, more or less. And yeah, if you could just bump things up to get into Vegeta, I don't really blame you on that one. But tell me what you thought about the similarities, the differences, and which version do you prefer, or do you just love it because it's Shaman King? Let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you on the next episode of What's the Difference? Till then, bye-bye.